The morning light in Illinois is gentler in spring. It spills across my kitchen window and warms the tiles I scrub each morning, even though no one comes often enough to dirty them. The kettle whistles softly. The refrigerator hums, and my chipped mug sits on the counter with a ribbon of steam rising from black coffee. It is quiet here, not the suffocating quiet of loneliness, but the kind that breathes alongside you. Every creak of the wood, every faint shift of the house, reminds me that this silence belongs to me. But silence has a way of remembering, and some mornings it doesn't feel like peace at all. Some mornings it acts like a key unlocking doors I'd rather leave sealed. Then, I am no longer here in my kitchen at 69. I am pulled backward 5 years, 10 years, even 20, until I find myself again in places I thought I had already left behind. One memory returns sharper than the rest, Ronan's kitchen on Christmas Eve. The memory always begins with scent, the cloying sweetness of his expensive candles clashing with the earthy aroma of tamales I had risen before dawn to make. I carried them carefully wrapped in foil, steaming a gift of love. I imagined us eating them together, my son remembering the taste from his childhood, smiling at me with gratitude. Instead, the dish landed on his granite countertop like a mistake. Ronan scrolled his phone with the posture of a man who owned the world, barely glancing up. His wife Cambria perched nearby on one of those tall stools, sipping something frothy from a mason jar that probably cost more than I earned cleaning houses in a day. When I offered the food, her lips curved politely, but her words cut clean. "We're actually trying to eat clean this week." Ronan finally picked up a tamale, bit into it, and gave me the look that always reduced me to a girl of 15 again, ashamed, caught asking for too much. "Mom," he chuckled, "these taste like rent food." The words didn't land all at once. They sank slowly like a stone slipping beneath water. "Rent food?" I asked softly, confused. He shrugged, smirked. "You know, poor people food." Cambria laughed, not loud, not cruel in volume. That would have been easier to bear. "No," she laughed quietly, dismissively, like I was a stray mutt nosing into places I didn't belong. And the worst part wasn't her laugh. It was the way Ronan didn't flinch when he said it. As if mocking me had become as natural to him as breathing. I spent decades scrubbing other people's homes until my knees ached cleaning baseboards with a toothbrush for women who never bothered to learn my name. I cared for dying men who thought I was their daughters and smiled anyway. I sold tamales in church parking lots just to pay Ronan's school fees, his trips, his shoes. I worked doubles so he wouldn't know what it meant to eat less, so your child could have seconds. And yet here he was, smirking over my food, reducing my sacrifices to a punchline. He glanced at Cambria for effect and added, "You own a house. Get real." I even laughed along. That's the part that shames me most, that I chuckled, nodded, folded the foil over my tamales like it was nothing, as if I hadn't given everything I had for the boy standing before me. Later that night, back in my cramped apartment, I cried quietly in the corner, away from the peeling paint and rattling heater. I whispered the same words into my reflection in the window. Get real. But what did real mean? For years, I thought real meant survival. It meant rent-paid bills kept just low enough not to cut the power a pair of shoes without holes for my son. I had never dreamed further than that. Until that night. Something sprouted inside me as I whispered back at the glass. The truth is, grief had already carved deep lines into my life long before that Christmas Eve. When Elias, my husband, my partner, dropped dead of a heart attack in a factory break room. Ronan was only 12. One moment, Elias was cracking jokes with his coworkers. The next, the world folded in on itself. There was no time to mourn. Rent was due. Shoes had holes. There was a boy to feed. I became mother and father overnight, carrying his weight and mine, swallowing my tears so Ronan wouldn't drown in them. But nothing I did ever seemed enough for him. He grew quiet, withdrawn, watching me with an expression that looked more like accusation than love, as if I owed him more than exhaustion. I lied to the school to take shifts. I patched clothes until fabric thinned to gauze. I thought it would all mean something in the end, that he would see it, appreciate it, become a man who knew the value of sacrifice. But he only learned how to expect it. So yes, that night in his gleaming kitchen, his laughter broke me. But it also planted something fierce, something I didn't recognize yet. A refusal, a hunger. I didn't know how or when, but I knew I would no longer live only in shadows. Years later, it was Mr. Redmond who gave me the chance to water that seed. I took the job thinking it was just work, cleaning, cooking, light care for an old man. But he looked at me with sharp eyes, saw me as more than a pair of hands. When he said, "Come in, let's have tea first. It's too cold to start working." No one had spoken to me like that in decades. Day after day, he treated me as if I were precious, not invisible. Once, as I scrubbed the base of his bathtub, he told me, "You clean like it's a prayer." And he was right. It was my prayer that work could mean something, that life could be more than endurance. 4 years later, when Mr. Redmond died, he left me a modest sum in his will. Not much, but combined with the tin of savings I had hidden beneath the floorboards, a tin made heavy from skipped meals, worn shoes, endless tamales, it was enough. Enough to finally buy a home. 2 small bedrooms, cracked Spanish tile, a wild garden out back. The ceilings were low, the paint flaked, but it was mine. On move-in day, I pressed the keys into my palm until they were warm, looked around the empty rooms, and whispered, "No one can take this from me." For the first time in my life, I truly believed it. One Thursday afternoon, I heard the creak of the gate. Ronan and Cambria strolled in without knocking, sunglasses on their heads, smiling like the garden already belonged to them. Their SUV sat crooked at the curb, engine still ticking. They brushed past me as though I were invisible, heading straight to the kitchen. Ronan opened the fridge, mocking the off-brand yogurt I bought. Cambria wrinkled her nose at the stove and muttered about upgrades. Then came the real blow-glossy brochures for senior facilities laid out across my table. "It's a highly rated place," Ronan said, tapping the pictures. "Staff meals, activities. You'll love it." Cambria slid a folder toward me. "Paperwork for selling the house, transferring my assets, signing me into a residence." "We've done all the hard work," she said sweetly. "All you need to do is sign." I said nothing. I rinsed the dirt from my hands at the sink and let them talk. They left eventually, their voices still echoing in the walls. For 3 days afterward, I replayed it all, checking the locks on the gate, laughing bitterly at myself, but also feeling something harder, sharper in my chest. Then another car appeared in the driveway. A man in a navy suit stepped out, tall, mid-40s, with the posture of a lawyer, but the eyes of someone I remembered. He introduced himself as Darius Redmond's son of the man I had once cared for. He told me Ronan had approached him for legal advice on declaring me incapacitated, filing for guardianship, to take over everything I owned. My breath caught. If Ronan succeeded, I would lose the right to make my own decisions. I looked at my hands that had raised him scrubbed floors, rolled tamales, signed my husband's death certificate, and finally held the deed to this house. I want to fight, I said. Darius nodded. That same day, he arranged for a medical evaluation to confirm my sound mind, installed recording devices in my home, and helped me draft a will. Keep your voice calm, he advised. Let them talk. The more they say, the stronger your case. He left not with pity, but with respect. And for the first time in years, I felt as though I were wearing armor. They came back on a Sunday, just as Darius had predicted. This time, they brought their children small gifts and sugary smiles. Cambria wore pastels, Ronan a navy sweater, both dressed for performance. They set lunch on the table, filled the kitchen with false sweetness, then steered the talk back to what's best for me. They claimed I had left the gas on, that I had fallen in the bathroom lies to paint me unfit. Out came the thicker folder papers marked with tabs, a pen placed carefully by the X. It's like a resort, Cambria said brightly. Gardens, spa days, bingo. I picked up the pen, then put it down. Slowly, I opened the envelope Darius had prepared. I spread the documents across the table, a signed medical evaluation showing full cognitive health, a letter outlining Ronan's attempt to have me declared incapacitated, and finally, the recording of their own voices mocking me, planning to move me like a housekeeper. Cambria paled. Ronan reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. At that moment, the front door opened. Darius stepped in calm and steady, holding a legal envelope of his own. He served Ronan a cease and desist warning of charges for attempted exploitation and elder abuse. Cambria jumped to her feet, shouting that I didn't know what I was doing. I looked them both in the eye. I am not your burden. I am not your victim. I am not your retirement plan. Panic flickered across Ronan's face. They left soon after, and I knew from that moment something had shifted forever. 6 months later, my garden was taller, greener. Ronan had accepted a plea deal community service at a senior facility, a mark on his record. Not prison, but enough to remind him of the line he had crossed. Justice wasn't loud. It was quiet, firm, and complete. The months that followed brought something unexpected. The story spread not just in church whispers, but across grocery aisles, waiting rooms, and fences between neighbors. Women I had never met came to my door. They brought papers, questions, sometimes tears. One brought flan and confessed her son had opened a bank account in her name. I gave them numbers advice, sometimes only permission to say no. You're not selfish, I told them. You're not crazy. You are not alone. Darius continued to visit, helping me rewrite my will. When I die, this house will go to a foundation that shelters older women with nowhere safe to go. Women like me before this garden, before this house. A letter arrived from my grandchildren. The handwriting was uneven, earnest. They apologized, said they hoped to see me when they were older, when they could come on their own. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into my recipe box. Let them come when they are ready. I'll be here. The garden doesn't ask for anything but care, and still it grows. Some mornings, I think maybe I'm like that too quietly, blooming long past the point I thought possible. Now dawn arrives with a steaming mug of coffee, a yellow-painted kitchen, and Harvey, the old shelter dog, snoring gently at my feet. Peace isn't loud. It's not triumphant. It's the absence of demands, the knowledge that no one will ever again twist my love into debt. At 69, I finally understand. Strength is not measured by how much you endure, but by the moment you say no and mean it. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe so more people can hear it. And leave a comment. What is the hardest boundary you've ever had to set with someone you love?